How can one song in a dark club end a whole marriage in a bright lobby hours later? Why did my husband just watch while I pressed my body against my ex on the dance floor, only to answer me later with calm notes and custody orders instead of a fight? What happens when you keep telling everyone your husband is controlling until the only control he uses is the law? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. My name is Arden Lice, and I still say it was just a dance. People keep acting like I burned my whole life down on purpose, like I walked onto that club floor with a plan to ruin a marriage. It was not like that in my head. In my head, it was one song, one old flame, and my husband standing at the bar, refusing to move his shoulders even a little. Jace was DJing, lights were flashing, my friends were filming, and I did what everyone expected me to do. I went to the center, let him pull me close, laughed too loud, and met Mark's eyes over Jace's shoulder. I smiled, maybe a little too long. My hand stayed on my ex's arm, phones went up, people shouted that Mark looked like a dad picking up his kid. Later, Mark said it was humiliation. I said it was just dancing, and that only insecure men felt attacked by a song. I turned the story into a joke at work, at family dinners, even at the park. Months after that night on the dance floor, a man in a lobby handed me papers where the dance had its own paragraph. I decided to flirt with my ex in front of my husband and started with pasta sticking to a cheap pan. I was in our small apartment kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling through my phone. Mark was at the stove, poking at noodles like they were a problem to solve. The TV in the living room played some dull show about warehouse safety. Nova sat cross-legged on the rug, with crayons spread around her, humming to herself. My notifications were full of club flyers and group chat messages. Jace had posted a story earlier, a quick video of him testing lights for his set that weekend. The club had tagged him, and then tagged me, because I sometimes helped with promotions. The flyer said he was doing a throwback night. That meant songs from when we used to date. The thought made my chest feel fizzy. Mark asked how late I thought I would be on Saturday. I said I did not know, that it was a club, not a dentist appointment. He asked if he should plan to stay awake, maybe pick me up. I said that would make me look like a teenager whose dad was waiting in the car. He said he only wanted to know I got home safe. I told him I was not a child and that I did not need a curfew. That word, curfew, sounded good on my tongue. It made him sound unreasonable and me sound brave. He went quiet for a moment. He stirred the sauce, then asked if my ex would be there, the DJ from before. He meant Jace. I shrugged and said the club hired Jace a lot, so probably, but that it was no big deal. I said we were basically strangers now. That was not entirely true. Jace and I still messaged sometimes, but I decided Mark did not need that detail. On the wall next to the fridge, our paper calendar hung with scribbles for school days and bill due dates. As I walked past, a fresh red circle caught my eye. Inside, in Mark's block letters, it said, Rivergate Center, 3:10 p.m. next Wednesday. I frowned and asked what that was. He said it was just something personal he had to do. I asked if it was work. He said not exactly work, just a meeting. The way he said meeting annoyed me. It sounded important on purpose. I told him he was starting to act like someone in a drama show who had secret appointments. He just shrugged and tasted the sauce. On the counter, there were 2 mugs. Mine was by the microwave, his near the sink. We used to leave them together by the kettle, touching. Now there was a gap between them. I noticed, and then pretended I had not. I told myself it was just clutter, not a sign. My phone buzzed. A notification from the club's promo account showed on the screen. A glossy poster with Jace in the center, headphones around his neck. At the bottom, in smaller text, it said hosted by Arden with my handle. I smiled. It felt like proof that I was still interesting. Mark asked what I was smiling at. I said it was nothing, just work. He asked if work meant dancing with my ex on a stage. I rolled my eyes and said he made everything sound dirty. I said it was only a club night, that I would be walking around, talking to people, making sure posts went up. I said his mind always jumped to the worst picture. He said quietly that last time I worked a night like that, I came home at 3 a.m, smelling like smoke and perfume, and he had not been able to sleep until I walked in the door. I said that was his choice. I said he had decided to sit up and worry instead of trusting me. He said trust did not mean enjoying being left in the dark. His words made me feel trapped, so I reached for my usual escape. I said he was trying to control me. I said he wanted me small and predictable. I said he did not like that other people wanted me. I did not ask if he wanted me too. I did not want to risk hearing something that did not match the picture in my head. Nova came in holding a drawing of a purple cat. She asked if I was going to a party. I said it was not a party, it was work. She asked if Daddy was going. I said Daddy did not like fun places. She looked at him with a little frown and asked why not. He said he liked being home when she went to sleep. I laughed and said he just liked being boring. Nova giggled because she thought we were all joking. Mark did not. After dinner, while he washed the dishes, I called my mother on speaker. I told her about the club night, about Jace, about how Mark was already freaking out. Renee said men got scared when they realized other people still found their wives attractive. She said I should not dim my light because of his issues. She asked if I had something nice to wear. I said yes. Mark could hear parts of the call. When I hung up, he asked if my mother thought he was crazy for being uncomfortable. I said she thought he was too serious for his own good. He dried his hands and turned to me. He said he trusted me, but not my ex. He asked if I understood that there was a difference. I said that if he trusted me, it should not matter who else was in the room. I said only insecure men measured their worth by who danced with their wives. Later, in the bedroom, I opened my wardrobe. I tried on a black dress that hugged my waist and hit mid-thigh. I told myself it was classy, not desperate. I took a quick mirror selfie, shoulders tilted, the dress just in frame. I sent it to Jace with a caption, asking if the promo host looked ready. He replied fast. He said I looked the same as before, only more dangerous. He added that the husbands of the city were not prepared. My stomach flipped. I deleted the preview from the chat list in case Mark walked by. He appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. He said, I looked beautiful in anything. I snapped that he always said things like that right before trying to tell me what to do. He said he did not want to tell me what to do. He wanted to go with me, so he did not feel like the enemy watching from a distance. I said, him standing there would kill the mood and make me look like a child under supervision. He asked for one thing, that I promised to send him a message when the night calmed down, so he would know I was safe. I said that sounded like a tracking device. I said he wanted to turn me into a package he could follow with numbers and times. He said he wanted to sleep, knowing I was okay. I said safety was my job, not his. He did not argue after that. He said he would take Nova to his sister's place on Saturday evening so she could have a fun night too. He said he would be at home, phone on the nightstand, in case I changed my mind about the ride. I rolled my eyes and said he should not wait up. He went to tuck Nova in. I heard the quiet click of her door latch down the hall. In the dim bedroom, my phone buzzed again. I lifted it and saw Jace's name at the top of the screen. I did not open the message, but the first line showed in the preview. The next morning, my head was busy before my eyes were even open. Mark had already left the bed. I heard the kettle click in the kitchen and the low sound of Nova talking to him. I lay there and stared at the ceiling, thinking about the black dress, the club lights, Jace's message. Make sure your husband sees how you really dance. The words made my chest feel sharp and good at the same time. Nova came in holding her fox and climbed onto my side of the bed. She asked if I was going to the dancing place today. I said not today, on Saturday. She asked again if Daddy was coming. I said Daddy did not like that kind of place, that someone had to stay home and be sensible. She frowned and said, maybe he could learn. I laughed and told her she was funny. In the kitchen, Mark stood by the counter making toast. He had packed Nova's school bag already. He said he would drop her off on his way to work. He asked if I had a busy day at the office. I said I did, because I was the only one who cared about anything there. He smiled a small, tired smile and said he was glad I liked my job. As he reached for his phone, the screen lit up with a reminder. Meeting, Personal Hillview, 9:20 a.m. He tapped it away without thinking. I saw the words and asked if he was still talking to someone about feeling disrespected. I put extra weight on the phrase. He said he had a follow-up chat, yes, that had helped him see things clearly. I said strong people did not need lectures from strangers to know how they felt. He answered that strong people did not pretend nothing was happening. When they left, the apartment felt too quiet. I checked my phone. Jace had sent another message late in the night after I fell asleep. He wrote that he could not wait to see if I still moved like before. He added a wink emoji. I did not answer, but I did not delete it either. At the open plan office, the air smelled like coffee and printer ink. Desks sat in rows by big windows. Kayla waved me over to our usual spot. As soon as I sat down, she asked about the club night. Everyone knew Jace was doing a throwback set. I said it would be fun, that I was helping host. I opened my email and saw the club had sent the final promo image. Jace in the center, lights behind him, and my name in the corner. Hosted by Arden Lies. Kayla leaned over to see my screen. She whistled low and said, I looked famous. I liked that. I showed her the flyer, and then, half on purpose, opened Mark's message from last night, the one where he asked me to send a text when things calmed down. I scrolled so that part showed. I did not scroll far enough to show the line where he said he was proud of my work. I said he was already making rules, that he needed a minute-by-minute plan. Kayla made a face and said it sounded like a list of curfews. I nodded and said exactly. I said he wanted to track me like a package. She asked if he had always been this intense. I shrugged and said it had gotten worse since Nova was born, that he clung tighter now. Our team chat pinged on the screen. Someone dropped the club flyer in the general channel. Under it, one of the guys wrote that our resident party queen was about to break hearts on Saturday. Then another coworker replied, tagging me, saying my husband must be shaking. A string of laughing emojis followed. I typed a fake sigh and wrote that he was already planning a whole police search if I stayed out past midnight. People sent more laughing faces and gifs. It felt like a little stage. Mid-morning, Mr. Hale walked by our desks. He paused near my screen and nodded at the flyer on the chat. He said he had seen some of my older club posts online. He said he respected that I had a life, but he wanted the company name to stay out of anything too wild. I smiled and said, of course, that I knew how to separate work and fun. He said he hoped so, then added that sometimes personal drama could spill over and make things messy. I told him my life was under control. I meant that I wanted it to be. At lunch, Kayla and I went to the coffee shop across the street. We took a table near the window. She pulled out her phone and showed me a short clip from an old night when Jace had DJ'd and I had been in the crowd. In the video, I leaned over the booth and laughed into his ear while he adjusted his headphones. You could see a blur of people behind us, cheering. Kayla said she could see why Mark might feel weird. I did not like that. I said Mark had always been sensitive and that he knew who I was when he married me. I said he could not suddenly decide I needed to be a small, quiet wife. I told her he had asked again to come to the club with me, and I said he would look like a security guard. She laughed and said that would be weird. I let that support sink in. As we walked back toward the office, my phone buzzed. It was Mark. He wrote that he hoped my day was going well, that he knew this club thing mattered to me even if he did not fully understand it. He said he wanted to talk about it calmly later, not fight. He added that he loved me and wanted us to be on the same team. The words made me feel tight for a second. Then I took a screenshot of just the part where he wanted to talk about it, cutting off the love line. I sent it to Kayla and wrote that he was planning a serious talk about a simple dance. She replied with an eye roll emoji and wrote that he sounded exhausting. When I got home early that afternoon, the apartment was quiet again. Mark's laptop sat on the dining table, screen half open. I told myself I was not snooping, I was just walking by. On the screen, a spreadsheet was open. There were dates in one column, times in another, and a few short phrases. Club work, late home, Nova present, argument, kitchen. The day of the upcoming Jace night was already there, blank in the note column, like he was leaving room. I felt a rush of heat in my face. At that moment, I heard the key turn in the lock. Mark walked in holding a small bag of groceries. He saw me looking. He put the bag down and asked if everything was okay. I waved at the laptop and said he was acting like a detective. I said normal husbands did not keep charts on their wives. He said he needed to write things down so he did not feel crazy later when stories changed. I said he was making himself crazy now. I called it obsessive. He shook his head and closed the laptop gently, not with a slam. That calm way of closing it annoyed me more than if he had snapped it shut. On the fridge, the red circle around Rivergate Center 3:10 p.m. was still there. Under it, a small sticky note had appeared. In his block letters it said, "Bring forms with a little arrow toward the circle." I laughed sharply. I said he was acting like he had a court date. He said it was just paperwork he needed to take with him. I asked what kind of paperwork. He said things related to our situation. I said he made everything sound serious on purpose. Later, while Nova colored at the table, Mark moved between the kitchen and the hallway, talking quietly on his phone. Once, I heard him say, "Yes, that's the date, and I have notes." When I stepped closer, his voice dropped even lower. He walked into the bedroom and shut the door most of the way. The muffled sound of his words mixed with the TV noises from the living room. It felt like he was building a whole other life in another room. That night, after Nova went to bed, I lay on the couch scrolling through my apps. The club had posted another story, a clip of Jace pointing at the camera with text over it saying, "Throwback night with special guest Arden." Comments underneath talked about our history. Someone wrote that my husband was brave for letting us be in the same room. I screenshotted that and sent it to Kayla, writing that letting was a funny word because Mark did not own me. She replied with a line saying he needed to learn. Mark sat at the dining table again, papers spread around him. The thin household folder was open, and beside it sat two new ones labeled bank and school. He slipped a paper into bank and straightened the pile. His phone lay face up next to his hand. A small message preview showed for a thread named Follow Up. He tapped it and put on his headphones. Saturday night felt like a movie I had written for myself. By late afternoon, the apartment buzzed with little tasks. Mark packed a small bag for Nova with pajamas and her fox. He said he would drop her at Talia's before taking me to the club. I said he did not have to come inside. I said him hanging around would kill the mood. He said driving me there was not hanging around, it was being a husband. I said a husband who hovered was not attractive. In the bedroom, I did my makeup in the mirror. The black dress clung in the right places. I added eyeliner a little heavier than usual. I wanted to look like the club version of myself, not the office one. As I took a selfie, my phone buzzed. Jace had sent a new message. He wrote that the set list was ready and that he had saved one song for us. I felt my throat tighten in a way I liked. I deleted the preview on the lock screen and put the phone face down when Mark came in. He looked at me and said, I looked beautiful. I said he always said that when he was about to complain. He said he was not complaining. He just wanted us to come home together. I said I was not promising anything. I said I might stay later with the team. He went quiet and picked up his keys. In the car, Nova sat in the back humming. She asked if there would be balloons at the club. I said no, but there would be lights. She asked again if Daddy was coming to dance. I said Daddy liked to stand by the bar and be serious. She giggled. Mark kept his eyes on the road. We dropped her at Talia's. On the doorstep, Talia asked if we were okay. I said we were fine, that Mark was just being dramatic about one night. She looked at him and said she hoped everyone would be sensible. Her tone made me roll my eyes inside. At the club, the line outside wrapped around the corner. People in glitter and black stood stamping their feet in the cold. I stepped out of the car like I owned the place. Milo was working the door. He hugged me and said the crowd was ready for chaos. He nodded toward Mark and asked if he was on duty. I laughed and said he was my bodyguard. Mark gave a small smile and went to pay the cover for himself. Inside, the bass hit like a wave. Lights flashed in blue and pink, cutting across the dark. The air smelled like sweat, fake fruit, and something metallic from the speakers. Jace was already in the booth, head bobbing, one headphone on. When he saw me, he lifted a hand and pointed, then sent a little salute. I felt the eyes of nearby people turn to see who he meant. I liked that. I led Mark to the sidebar where my friends were gathered. They shouted my name and pulled me into a hug. One of them lifted her phone and filmed us spinning once. They looked Mark up and down and called him steady. Someone joked that he looked like a man checking the exits instead of the drinks. I laughed and did not defend him. He stood with a beer in his hand, near enough to see me, far enough not to bump into anyone. He said he would stay here and let me work. I said that was a good idea, so he would not get in the way. In my head, I translated that into, he could watch and see how lucky he was. The first hour was easy. I moved through the crowd, making sure the promo tags were right, posting short clips to the club account, laughing with people who remembered me from other nights. Jace played safe tracks, songs everyone liked. My phone buzzed a few times in my bag with messages from Mark, a photo of Nova at Talia's, a quick line saying he was at the bar if I needed anything. I did not answer. I said to myself that I would check later when I took a break. Around midnight, the music shifted. Jace talked into the mic between songs. He said it was throwback time and that he had an old friend in the room. He did not say my name, but he did not have to. People around the booth turned, already looking at me. Kayla, who had come with a group from the office, started nudging me toward the center of the dance floor. Mark watched from the bar, jaw tight. I could see his hands around the glass. I could also see two girls near him whispering as they looked from him to me and back. One of them lifted her phone, pointed it toward us, and grinned. Jace mixed into a song that had been ours years ago. The first notes made something in my chest jump. He stepped back from the booth and hopped down from the small platform, mic in hand. He walked toward me through the crowd. People parted a little. Someone shouted that this was about to get good. He reached me and held out one hand. It was half a joke, half serious. I took it, because what else was I supposed to do with all those eyes on us? He pulled me closer, one arm around my waist. The room cheered. My friends screamed that this was iconic. I told myself it was harmless, that it would be over in 3 minutes. We started to move. It was not a gentle dance. The bass was heavy and the crowd pressed in. Jace's chest was close to mine, his breath warm near my ear when he laughed. I let my hand rest on his shoulder, then slid it down his arm. It felt like sliding into an old costume. I knew every beat. I lifted my head and looked toward the bar. Mark was there, still. His face was pale under the colored lights. He did not look angry, exactly. He looked like someone who had been pushed out of his own house. For a moment, my chest pinched. Then I remembered Jace's message. Make sure your husband sees how you really dance. So I did. I leaned in closer to Jace, let my hips follow the bass and kept my gaze on Mark. Then I let a small smile spread on my face. Not a friendly smile, a knowing one. I held it as the lights flashed. I watched Mark see it, Around us, people shouted. Someone yelled that he looked like a dad picking up his kid. Phones rose higher. Kayla's flash went off. I saw my own smirk in the tiny reflection of her screen. Behind me, someone started to chant for shots. A group near the booth yelled for a toast to the ex. Jace laughed into the mic and said something about old moves never dying. I could barely hear the words over the noise, but I knew the shape of them. Mark did not come storm the floor. He did not shout or push anyone. He stayed where he was, then set his glass down slowly. I saw him reach into his pocket and pull out his phone. For a second, the screen lit his face. He looked at something, maybe a message from Talia, maybe a clip someone had already sent. Then, very calmly, he raised the phone just enough to catch a short video of the scene in front of him. A moment later, I noticed his thumb flick across the screen. A tiny banner appeared for a second, even from a distance. File uploaded successfully. Then he slipped the phone into his jacket. The song kept going. Jay spun me once and my hair brushed his arm. He said something about me still having it. I said he talked too much. My lips brushed close to his ear as I spoke, not on purpose, but not by accident either. People near us screamed and pushed closer. Someone knocked into my shoulder, but I did not stop. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mark move away from the bar. He walked toward the side of the room, not toward us. He passed Milo at the service station. Milo said something. Mark just shook his head. He went through the crowd without touching anyone more than he had to. Then he disappeared through the door to the smoking patio. I did not follow. I told myself that if he wanted to sulk outside, that was his choice. I told myself a confident man would have come and joined the dance. Inside, the DJ booth lights changed color again, bathing us in red. A new phone lifted in front of my face. I saw my smile doubled on the tiny screen. The next morning, I expected Mark to explode. I expected slamming doors, raised voices, maybe even him telling me to pack a bag. In my head, he was always one big scene away from proving me right about him. Instead, the apartment was quiet. I woke up alone in the bed, still tired in my bones from the late night and the sweat that had dried on my skin. The light through the curtains was thin and grey. I heard plates clink in the kitchen and Nova's small voice telling some story about her fox. I lay there for a second, staring at the ceiling, the image of my own smirk from the videos looping in my head. Nova came in and climbed onto the bed with her fox. She asked if I had fun dancing. I said it had been a busy night. She said Talia's TV had been loud and Daddy had paced sometimes. She asked why his phone kept lighting up and why he looked sad. My stomach tightened. I said he just missed us, that it meant he loved me. I made his fear sound romantic. In the kitchen, Mark stood at the sink stirring sugar into his coffee even though it did not need more. There were 2 mugs on the counter again, one by the kettle, one by the sink, a space between them. He looked like he had not slept much. Shadows sat under his eyes. I poured myself coffee and leaned on the counter. I said he had gone overboard with the calls last night. I said calling that many times was dramatic. He said he had called because I was pressed against my ex on a crowded dance floor and then disappeared into lights and people. He said he had not known if I was okay. I said I had told him where I was. He said the club was not a location to be lost in. He did not raise his voice. He did not accuse me of numbers and details. He just stated things like they were facts. That made me feel weirdly naked. I told him he was trying to make me feel guilty for being fun. I said some wives would be happy to have a husband who showed up at the club. He said he had not felt welcomed, only used as a prop. I waved my hand like I was brushing away a fly. I said he was playing the victim. I said everyone danced close at clubs, that I could not be responsible for how other people felt about normal behavior. He looked at the floor for a moment, then said that whatever last night had been, it had not felt normal to him at all. We had already told Nova we would go to the park before lunch with the families. Mark still wanted to keep the plan. I thought about pretending to be sick, to hide the heaviness under my skin, but I did not want anyone to think I was ashamed. Shame was for other people. Before we left, I walked past the little desk in the living room corner. A clipboard lay there now. On the top page, in Mark's square handwriting, one word sat at the top. Statement. Nothing else. Just that heading. Waiting. I picked it up and waved it at him. I asked if he was writing an essay about how hard his life was with me. I said only victims wrote statements. He said calmly that he felt like one sometimes. He said he was tired of wondering if he had imagined things, so he was making notes. I said he was turning our life into homework. He took the clipboard back and set it down. On the fridge, the red circle around Rivergate Centre, 3:10 p.m., was still bright. Next to it, another small circle had appeared on a different day, in the same block letters, Lakeside Office, 8:35 a.m. Underneath, in pencil, he had written just the word follow-up. I snorted and said we were becoming a law firm. He said he was just trying to understand his options. He did not say options for what. At the park, kids ran across the wet grass and climbed the metal frames with red noses. The air smelled like damp earth and cheap coffee from a cart. Nova ran to the swings. Mark followed, hands on the chains as he pushed her in slow arcs. Her laughter rose and fell. I stood with a loose group of mothers near a bench. Some of them had been at the club, others had only seen the videos. One of them pulled out her phone and showed me a clip. Me pressed against Jace, my hand on his shoulder, lights flashing. In the background, you could see Mark at the bar, still and pale. The caption said, "She still got it." There were laughing faces under it. I laughed and said my husband had watched the whole thing like a security guard. I said he had looked like a dad, picking up his kid from a place he did not understand. I pulled my own phone out and showed them another clip from someone else's story, where my smirk was clear. I said he had practically run out to the smoking patio like a sulky teenager. One woman said at least he cared enough to be there. Another joked that some husbands would not even notice if their wives danced with an ex. I snapped that caring was fine, but calling it care, when he glared from the shadows, was lying. I said he could have joined us or laughed. Instead, he chose to be offended. I made it sound like an active choice. Over by the swings, Mark kept pushing Nova. He could probably hear enough to get the gist. He did not turn around. That annoyed me. I wanted him to show his ugly side so I could point to it. Later, at the family restaurant, the light was too bright and the air smelled like fried food and birthday cake from another table. We had a long table for all of us. My parents, my brother, Mark's parents, Talia, us, Nova. Kids' menus with crayons waited at each seat. At first, conversation was about safe things: work, school, weather. Milo sat near me and leaned over to whisper that the club night had been mad. He pulled out his phone under the table and showed me a clip of me turning toward Mark with that smile. He laughed and said the whole bar had gone quiet when I did that. I laughed with him. Across the table, Talia watched. When there was a pause in conversation, my mother asked how the club had been. She said she heard the DJ had done a special set. That was my opening. I told them how the crowd had screamed when Jace played our old song, how he had come down from the booth and pulled me into the dance. I stood slightly from my chair to show how he had put his arm around my waist. I said everyone had their phones out. I made my voice light, like it was the funniest thing that had ever happened. Then I added the part I wanted. I said Mark had stood at the bar like a statue, refusing to move. I said he had looked jealous and stiff. I said he had stormed out toward the side door like a teenager leaving a bad date. I did not mention the calm way he had set his glass down or the careful walk through the crowd. I made big gestures, turned him into a cartoon. Renee laughed loud enough that people at nearby tables glanced over. She said men got scared when they realized their wives still had options. She said, "Good for you, for not shrinking just because a man frowned." Simon smiled weakly and took a sip of his drink instead of joining in. Mark put his fork down and looked at me. He asked if we had to turn it into a performance. His voice was low. I said we were just having fun. I said transparency was healthy. I said if he could not laugh about it, that was his problem. I smiled at the others like I was being generous. Talia cleared her throat. She asked if she could say something. I shrugged. She looked at me and said calmly that she had seen some of the videos. She said that if she imagined Mark pressed against an ex on a dance floor, smiling straight at me while everyone filmed, she knew she would not call it just a dance. She asked if I could honestly say it would not have hurt. Her words hit like cold water. For a second, I had no answer. Then I said it was different, because men were not sexualized the same way and everyone knew it. I said we did not need to be dramatic. I said she always had a talent for making everything sound like a counseling session. People shifted in their seats. Nova, who had been drawing on her kid's menu, looked up. She asked in a clear, small voice if the music man was going to be her new daddy, since I liked dancing with him more than with Daddy. The table went silent. Mark's face went still. My chest squeezed, but I did not let the feeling show. Ruth reached out and smoothed Nova's hair. She told her nothing like that was happening, that Mommy and Daddy were just having a hard time. She gave me a look that felt like a question and a warning mixed together. My mother rushed in to say that grown-ups just got emotional sometimes and that Nova should not worry. I snapped that everyone was making too much of one night. I said sometimes couples had big fights and that it was normal. Ruth looked straight at me and said, in a quiet, even voice, that disappearing into a crowd with your ex while your husband watched was not something to be proud of. She said mocking him for being hurt in front of his child was worse. I said she was trying to make her son into a victim. I said he had always liked drama more than he admitted. I said he could have just danced and none of this would have happened. My words felt less solid even as I threw them. After lunch, back at the apartment, Mark took Nova to her room to read. I walked past the little desk. The clipboard with statement was still there. Next to it, a small stack of papers sat neat, separate from the rest. From the corner, I heard a low hum. The shredder under the desk was chewing up a thick piece of junk mail. Mark fed it in slowly, focusing on the sound. I said he was shredding our life. He said he was shredding old flyers and trash, nothing important. He did not touch the neat stack. Later that week, we ran out of basics. I took Nova to the supermarket. The fluorescent lights burned my eyes. We walked the aisles, my cart half empty. As we queued at the checkout, I saw Talia ahead of us with a small basket. She turned as the line moved and gave me a nod. She asked how things were. I said fine, that Mark was still sulking but would calm down. I said he always did. I said he liked to act serious but in the end would never actually do anything. She looked at me for a long moment and said, very softly, that from where she stood, he did not look like he was sulking. He looked like he was getting things in order. I opened my mouth to argue, but the cashier pressed a button and the receipt printer started to whir. As the thin paper slid out, Nova tugged at my sleeve. She asked if I was going to dance with the music man again and make Daddy sad. After the supermarket, something in the air at home felt like when a thunderstorm misses your street. The sky looks wrong, but nothing happens. I expected Mark to finally crack. I wanted him to shout, slam something, call me selfish in front of Talia or Ruth so I could point and say, there, see, this is the real him. Instead, he just moved around the apartment in slow, steady lines. He took the shopping from my hands, unpacked it, put things in their places. He asked Nova about her day. He did not ask if I had enjoyed the question she asked in the checkout line. I kept waiting. The big fight did not come. It made me more tense than any shouting could have. That evening, the dining table looked like a desk again. The household folder lay open, with neat stacks inside. Next to it sat the bank and school folders. A new thin binder labeled utilities was on the chair, thicker than a normal set of bills. Mark sat with his laptop open, fingertips resting on the keys. The screen showed a clean desktop. In one corner, I saw two big folders named Archive A and Archive B before he moved the mouse and they slid away behind another window. I asked if we had registered a company and forgotten to tell me. He said he was just putting things in order. I laughed and told him normal husbands watch TV in the evening, not rearrange their entire lives into files. He said some people needed order when everything felt like chaos. I said he was being dramatic. I picked up the utilities binder and flipped it open. Instead of only bills, inside, there were plastic sleeves holding what looked like printed screenshots. Tiny frames of me at the club, my own smirk frozen, little timestamps under them. I felt heat flood my chest. I snapped the binder shut. I said he was sick, keeping evidence like that. I said only crazy people hoarded screenshots of their own wives. He did not react. He said he kept things because stories changed, and he did not want to doubt his memory anymore. I said stories changed because people grew. He said some people only rewrote them. Later, after Nova went to bed, I stood in the doorway of the small home office corner. The lamp threw a yellow circle on the desk. The little printer beside it spat out a blank page and beeped. The smell of warm toner hung in the air. Mark took the page, checked something on the screen, then fed the paper into the shredder below. The machine hummed as it chewed. I told him he was acting like we were in a crime show. I said only people planning to betray someone moved this much paper. He said quietly that he had already been betrayed. He said he was just trying not to be surprised again. I rolled my eyes and told him he loved to call himself a victim. On the shelf above the desk, under a thick taxes folder, I noticed a small USB stick taped to the wood. A strip of paper wrapped around it with a date written, in his block letters, from that same week. I tugged at the tape. I asked what secret he was hiding. He took it gently from my fingers and put it back. He said some things were for his records. He did not raise his voice. The next afternoon, I went to pick Nova up from school. When I turned into the street, I saw Mark already there, leaning on the fence outside the gate. He held a small notebook and a pen. A few other parents stood nearby. Nova saw him and ran straight into his arms. He lifted her and asked about her day. I stayed by the car a second longer than usual. When I walked up, he set Nova down and handed her a snack. He said he had switched some shifts so he could do more pickups. He said it was important to him to keep track of her routine right now. I said he was trying to make himself look like the stable one. He said he was trying to be stable, that someone had to be. I hated the way that sounded. As we walked back to the car, he wrote something in the notebook. I asked if he was noting the time I turned up, as if we were in some test. He said he was just writing that he had picked her up and the teacher's note about reading practice. He added that details mattered. I said only lawyers cared about details. He did not respond. Later in the week, I met my parents at the park again. Nova played on the slide while we sat on a bench. I told the story of the club one more time, only now I added his files and notebooks. I said he had folders for feelings and maybe a spreadsheet for how often I blinked. I said he was trying to scare me with the idea that he could do something legal. Renee laughed. She said men like to puff up with paper when they felt small. She told me not to be intimidated by forms and meetings. She said he would calm down once he realized I was not afraid. Simon did not laugh. He watched Nova for a long moment instead. Then he said softly that he could understand why Mark was hurt. The sentence pricked under my skin. I said Simon was taking his side. I said everyone liked to feel sorry for the quiet one. I said people forgot who had to live with his sulking. Simon shook his head. He said Mark did not look like he was sulking. He looked like he was done arguing. I did not like that word, done. That night, I decided I could not stand the quiet any longer. If Mark was going to threaten me with these vague meetings and folders, I wanted him to say it out loud so I could fight properly. In the living room, his papers covered the table again. The sticky note bring form still sat next to the red circle for Rivergate Centre 3:10 p.m. Under that, another circle was now marked North Court Centre 11:15 a.m. My chest tightened when I saw it. I stood between him and the table. I said he had a choice. Drop this whole legal project and actually work on the marriage, or admit he wanted to leave. I said I would not live in a half-marriage where one person kept secret files. I said he was emotionally abusing me with his silence. He leaned back in his chair and looked up at me. He said he had tried talking. He said he had tried shouting and crying and calm words. He said every time, the story he heard come out of my mouth later was different from what happened. He said he was tired of being turned into the villain in my stories. I said he was calling me a liar. He said he was saying our versions did not match. He said that was why he wrote things down. Dates, words, who was present. He said he wanted something solid when he felt like he was losing his grip on reality. I said that was dramatic. I said only unstable people talked about losing their grip. He did not rise to it. He said maybe he had been unstable, waiting for me to come home from nights where I disappeared and acted proud about it later. He said he was trying to become stable again for Nova's sake. I laughed, but it came out too sharp. I said threatening me with invisible papers was not stable, it was controlling. I said if he had any courage, he would either forgive me and move on, or leave and stop pretending. He watched me for a moment. His expression changed in a way I did not like. It went flat, not angry or sad, just finished. Then he spoke slowly, like he wanted each word to land. He said he was done with kitchen fights, park performances, and restaurant shows. He said he would not stand in rooms where he was the punchline to my jokes anymore. He said he was finished trying to fix things by talking. He said he could not make me respect him, but he could decide how much more damage he allowed. He looked down at the folders, then back at me. He said he was going to handle things properly now. He repeated that word, properly. He said the next steps would not be shouting in front of Nova or arguing in group chats. They would be clear, written steps. He said it was for Nova and for himself. I said he was bluffing. I said he loved his routine too much to actually change it. I said men like him talked big but stayed. He did not answer. At that moment, his phone on the table buzzed and the screen lit up. An alarm label showed, paper drop. He tapped it off with his thumb. Without another word to me, he picked up his headphones and put them on. He moved to the small desk in the corner, opened his laptop, and made a call in a low voice. I could hear only pieces. He said he had the dates. He said he had copies. He said he wanted to know the next steps. 2 weeks later, I walked into the glass lobby of Mark's office tower, thinking about deadlines, not divorce. I had come to meet Kayla for coffee at the cafe downstairs. I was scrolling through old club videos on my phone, my own smirk frozen under flashing lights, when a man in a plain jacket stepped in front of me. He asked my name. I said yes, that was me. He placed a thick envelope in my hand and said I had been served. Then he turned and walked away. On top, in bold letters, it said petition to dissolve the marriage of Mark Ellis and Arden Leese. Below, a section titled Temporary Orders. My eyes caught on lines. Mark to keep the apartment. Nova's school nights to be spent with him. My time called parenting time, on a fixed schedule. Through the glass, I saw Mark on the sidewalk, watching once, then turning away. The process server said, served at 11:26 a.m. as the lobby elevator bell chimed, and Mark turned from the glass doors outside.